Next on the news, extensive coverage of the deadly shooting of a New York City police officer.
Promises of safer streets in the wake of a tragedy. I'm Jessica Easthope with how the Harlem and law enforcement communities are responding to the death of Officer Jason Rivera.
Plus, the inspiring story of Officer Rivera in his short time on Earth, the depth of his devotion to his job, and why he signed up to become one of New York's finest. President Biden considering sending in troops as the situation deteriorates at the border between Russia and Ukraine.
I want the Holy Father to know we are praying for you.
And the special messages from children in America delivered to Pope Francis. I'm Christine Persichetti. Currents News starts right now.
Your family's with you. You're the guardian angel. Didn't know you, but love you. Okay.
A city in mourning for a young rookie police officer killed in the line of duty. The deadly shooting of Officer Jason Rivera and the wounding of his partner, Officer Wilbert Moorer, has sent shockwaves across the city. It has also renewed calls from the streets and from City Hall for an end to gun violence. Our coverage begins with Jessica Easthope in Harlem, where there is anger over this senseless tragedy.
As this memorial outside of the 32nd precinct for police officer Jason Rivera grows, so does the community's fears of more gun violence. Rivera was killed on Friday less than a block from here while responding to a domestic dispute with police officer Wilbert Moorer, who was shot in the head and is still fighting for his life.
What is it going to take to get the damn guns off the street? You know, too innocent, doing their job. And we're looking now. Look, 22 years old.
Tamara Griffin says she's sick over the 22-year-old rookie officer's death.
Your family's with you. You're the guardian angel.
Griffin grew up here, and now with a 16% rise in shootings, she says the city is falling deeper into a dangerous pattern of crime.
His home, and it was never nothing like this from you coming up. He wasn't afraid to walk the streets at night. I don't come out at dark.
On Friday, Rivera, Moorer, and a third officer responded to a domestic dispute between a mother and son and were ambushed. The alleged shooter, LaShawn McNeil, opened fire with this illegal gun equipped with a high-capacity magazine. He was shot and wounded by the third officer. Rivera was pronounced dead at Harlem Hospital, and Moorer, who was transferred to NYU Langone, has undergone 2 surgeries for a bullet lodged in his brain.
We just have to hope and pray for better days.
While unveiling his plan for tackling violence Monday, Mayor Eric Adams said he promises the streets will get safer.
New Yorkers will see and feel these changes quickly. We will ramp up enforcement, deploy more officers on the streets and in the subways, and get our courts at full capacity.
Retired NYPD Sergeant Soyini Chansu spent 22 years on the job. She says Adams has his work cut out for him.
We had 8 years of lawlessness, like disorder, major setback for the city. It just really reminds me of the 80s right now.
Along with prayers at the memorial, Diocese of Brooklyn Bishop Robert Brennan is also sending his, tweeting out, quote, "Our hearts are broken as we pray for the families of 22-year-old NYC police officer Jason Rivera, who died in the line of duty last night, and of gravely injured 27-year-old officer Wilbert Moorer. The suffering is incomprehensible. Lord, please comfort them and all in the NYPD." The suspect, LaShawn McNeil, has died at Harlem Hospital. Officer Moorer remains in critical condition at NYU Langone. A wake and funeral are planned for Officer Rivera later this week. In Harlem, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
We're learning so much more about who Officer Rivera was. The 22-year-old newlywed from Inwood was known for his big heart and smile and his eagerness to help others. He was devoted to his job and the community he served. It was a big part of who he was, and that was evident from the start.
Stay strong, do good in your schools, and trust me, you'll be finished soon. It goes by like that.
Slain officer Jason Rivera recorded this speech for students at his former high school just a few years ago, inspiring them to succeed in life.
I want y'all to hear my voice, and know that, y'all gonna get through it. Y'all gonna get through it. You gotta put in the work. Y'all gotta put in 100% effort.
Because that's exactly what he did, whether he was raising money for charity as a high schooler or patrolling the streets of the city as a rookie cop. Jason was known for his huge, warm smile and personality, as seen on this video making the rounds on social media.
I got my little buzzing on the scene. My son holding the hood there right now. Yeah, that, My son looking good in the uniform, too.
In a letter to the police academy titled "Why I Became a Police Officer," Jason wrote that he was inspired to be a cop to improve relations between the community and the police. He said, "I know that something as small as helping a tourist with directions or helping a couple resolve an issue will put a smile on someone's face." After being killed while responding to that domestic dispute, Rivera's wife of only a few months posted this message on Instagram after visiting her husband's locker room, saying, "Fly high, my beautiful angel. Now your soul will spend the rest of my days with me, through me, right beside me. I love you till the end of time." The Police Benevolent Association is now calling on New Yorkers to be beside Jason's widow at his upcoming funeral. Union President Patrick Lynch made an impassioned plea for everyone to show up on Friday.
The streets can't just be full of New York City police officers at this funeral. The public has to come. The public has to send a message to anyone that dares to harm a New York City police officer. Not here, not now, not today, not to us. We're humbly asking you to come out and help us.
If you'd like to attend, funeral arrangements for Officer Rivera are set for later this week. His wake will be at St. Patrick's Cathedral this Thursday, January 27th, from 1 to 8 p.m. The next day, Friday, January 28th, will be his funeral mass, which begins at 9 a.m. Be sure to tune in online, as Currents News will carry the funeral mass live on our Facebook page. That's at Currents News on Facebook and Twitter. An online fundraiser for Jason's family has already raised more than $250,000 online. If you'd also like to contribute, just go to fundthefirst.com and search for Police Officer Jason Rivera. New York's Cardinal Timothy Dolan is already praying for Officer Rivera and his injured partner Wilbert Mora. Cardinal Dolan visited Officer Mora Friday at Harlem Hospital.
I came because I'm a pastor, and these two officers are Catholics. They're members of my spiritual family, the church. I'd come anyway. It's very grim because he is in critical condition. So there's a lot of sadness, and you can see it in the face and the carriage of his colleagues in the police department who really come through at a situation like this.
Cardinal Dolan said Mora was not conscious during his visit, but His Eminence praised the NYPD for how they rally together in times of sadness, remarking, "We may be the biggest city in the world, but we come together almost like a little neighborhood whenever there is trauma like this." One person who's been in that situation with worried or grieving families a countless number of times is Monsignor David Casado, Deputy Chief Chaplain of the NYPD and pastor of St. Athanasius Church in Bensonhurst. He joins us now. Monsignor, thanks for being with us.
It's great to be here today, but it's a very sad day. Very sad day.
And we were just saying it's January 24th. Already 5 police officers have been shot in the city. 4 in 72 hours. I mean, it's crazy.
It's very sad. First of all, guns were all over the streets, and secondly, one died. One is probably going to die, and we're faced with tremendous tragedy. And you just think about all this violence in the streets and how police officers run right in to the middle of a situation, hoping to diffuse a family situation. And look, we're going to funerals now. We're going to probably 2 funerals. One on Friday. Don't know if the other police officer will make it. Very sad time. And besides that, if you remember, the other day there was an explosion in the Bronx. 5 police officers ran in, and they ran into the building, and they were all rushed to the hospital. So, you know, the police are constantly under pressure. It's interesting because Sunday Mass at 11:30 at St. Athanasius, I had about 5 or 6 police officers in the church with their families. And it's interesting, they were with their families. And I called them all out and I asked them to stand. The whole church applauded for the great work of the police department of our city. These police officers, like other times, run into situations and make things better. It's very sad.
So as the chaplain, what do you say? What can you even say to the officers and the families to console them?
I don't think there's too much you can say. First, you just try to be with them. And the chaplains are amazing. We're 11 chaplains in NYPD, and we're all denominations, and we walk into situations and really just try to be with the police officers and their families. Could you imagine dealing with families today? Those poor families. You listen to a young wife, you listen to a mother, you listen to other people in Jason's life, and hear all the stories of his goodness, his great love, his caring, and you just try to be with them and walk them through the moment, and as Pope Francis says, accompany them on their journey.
It's heartbreaking. I can't even imagine. And we just heard from Cardinal Timothy Dolan before, and he visited the other officer, Wilbert Moore, at the hospital. He told his family to not be scared. But how do you expect families of police officers not to be scared these days?
I'll give you a story. There's a young police officer in my parish, 24 years old. He comes to church for the last 2 Sundays, his mother, father, and his sister. And they've been coming regularly to church. I said to the mother and father, hold on, I got you covered. We're praying for your son to watch over, God watch over him. Say Michael the Archangel, the patron saint of the police department. You gotta pray. You gotta pray for their safety.
And even Officer Rivera is so young. He was a rookie cop.
22.
It's horrible. So what do you say to young people who are looking to become police officers and maybe now might hesitate?
I think it's a real serious situation. When you hear all these shootings, you say, why do I want to be a cop?
Right.
And you got to try to really encourage them, because hopefully these times change. Hopefully through our politicians we get back to some more law and order in society, where I think basically the issues come from. There's too much liberalism to the laws and the district attorneys, etc., in our city, and we need to try to really put that under control. And I said to people, talk up to your politicians that we want stricter laws when it comes to taking care of our police officers.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes a special person to be a police officer. Monsignor David Casado, Deputy Chief Chaplain of the NYPD, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. God bless you.
You too. Officers Mora and Rivera were responding to a domestic disturbance call, one of the most dangerous situations for cops, according to experts. FBI statistics show that 503 officers were killed nationwide between 2011 and 2020. During that period, 43 of them were answering a domestic disturbance call. That's roughly 8.5% of the total number of officers killed during that time period. 2021 was one of the deadliest years for police officers. Last year saw the highest number of officers killed nationwide in the line of duty since the terror attacks on September 11th in 2001. 73 officers were killed on the job last year, according to the FBI. That was the highest total recorded by the agency since 1995, excluding the 9/11 attacks. As we mentioned earlier, 5 NYPD officers have been shot since the start of 2022, 4 in a span of just 72 hours. And shootings in all 5 boroughs were up 16% this year through January 16th compared to the same time last year. More now from Mayor Eric Adams on his plan to stop violence here in the city.
We will start by putting more officers on patrol in key neighborhoods throughout the city. We will enhance existing public safety units with new neighborhood safety teams, which will focus on gun violence. We will launch these additional teams in the next 3 weeks with deep focus on 30 precincts where 80% of violence occurs.
Adams has also demanded assistance from Washington to block the flow of firearms into the city, saying the federal government must step in. President Joe Biden tweeting out his condolences and well wishes Saturday, saying, Jill and I are saddened to hear 2 NYPD officers were shot last night, one fatally. We're keeping them and their families in our prayers. Officers put on the badge and head into harm's way every day. We're grateful to them and their families for their extraordinary sacrifice. There's a lot more news headed your way. Pope Francis praying for peace as tensions between Ukraine and Russia are escalating. 2 2 priests and 2 lay people martyred during the El Salvador Civil War are now one step closer to sainthood. And it's been 2 years since the epicenter of the pandemic went into lockdown, where things stand now as the Beijing Olympics draw near.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
Growing tensions between the Ukraine and Russia are worrying the Pope, the Holy Father, praying for peace as fears rise that Russia will invade its neighbor. Bishops in the Ukraine and neighboring Poland warning the situation represents a great danger to all of Europe. U.S. officials say the possible military conflict between the two nations could happen at any time. The White House currently taking steps to ensure Americans in Ukraine get out safely, as well as taking other military precautions. Britt Conway reports.
The world is watching and waiting as more than 127,000 Russian troops mass at the Ukrainian border. U.S. officials have warned invasion could be imminent. In the meantime, the U.S. has been sending weapons to Ukraine and getting some Americans out of Ukraine. The State Department is reducing staff levels at the U.S. Embassy there.
Certain wires have been tripped because all embassies abroad have a plan that lays out precisely what it is that has to happen before these evacuations occur. Now, the assessment has come in that more things have happened, we're not exactly sure what those are yet, that have caused the State Department to say, yeah, families need to get out.
Senior officials familiar with the discussions say President Joe Biden is also working on a global strategy to increase liquefied natural gas production in the event an invasion leads to shortages in Europe, which relies on Russia for nearly half of its supply. A senior official said Biden also met with top military leaders to talk about options for bolstering U.S. troop levels in the Baltics and Eastern Europe. During which the White House says President Biden again affirmed that should Russia further invade Ukraine, the U.S. will impose swift and severe consequences on Russia with our allies and partners. What happens next, though, depends on what Russian President Vladimir Putin is planning.
It's going to be all part of I think, a complex sort of analysis that he's probably doing, trying to decide, do I do this? And if so, how and when?
I'm Britt Conway reporting.
2 priests and 2 lay people martyred during the El Salvador Civil War in the 1970s and 80s have been beatified. The ceremony for the 4 new blesseds held in San Salvador by Cardinal Gregorio Rosa Chavez. One of the priests and both lay people were gunned down by a paramilitary death squad in the late 70s. Their funerals were celebrated by St. Oscar Romero when he was then Archbishop of San Salvador. The 3rd blessed was killed in 1980. He was shot at point-blank range. Beatification is one of the final steps toward sainthood. With less than 2 weeks to go, preparations are underway for the 2022 Winter Olympics, and already Beijing has hit a roadblock, confirming 6 new COVID cases among the personnel related to the Games. That's on top of the 72 COVID cases the Olympic Committee confirmed over the weekend. The details come as the country marks the 2-year anniversary since Chinese authorities locked down Wuhan, sealing millions of residents inside their homes for over 2 months. As David Culver reports, China is replicating similar strategies across the country ahead of the Winter Games.
It was a move that shocked the rest of the world. Going back 2 years, we think about that lockdown of Wuhan, a city of more than 11 million people, a bustling metropolis coming to a stop. For 76 days, it remained locked down. And while the strategies in combating COVID-19 have evolved here in China, they are still very strict, and the measures don't seem to be going anywhere. In fact, we are seeing, as recently in the past few days, more targeted lockdowns put in place. Now, we don't normally see the citywide lockdowns, though those happen as well, as recently as just a few weeks ago in Xi'an. That's just starting to let up. But what we saw in Wuhan was the start of the mass testing, the lockdowns, of course, people confined in their homes, sealed off from the rest of their environment, and we're seeing the contact tracing, using technology to really try to mark where we go throughout this country and try to see if we come in contact with a confirmed case. All of this is to say that it's not likely to lighten up, certainly as we're nearing the Olympics. The start of the Olympics is a major event for the government here. They want to portray it as a safe and spectacular event. However, they're facing challenges, including increased outbreaks of the Omicron variant here in the mainland and within the capital city. They're trying to move forward with this closed-loop system so as to keep everyone arriving as part of the Olympics separate from the general population. It will be a challenge. David Culver, Beijing.
While the world continues to grapple with the Omicron variant, the COVID vaccine could eventually become a yearly shot. At least that's what Pfizer is pushing for. The pharmaceutical company says people should get an annual dose like a flu shot instead of having to get a booster every several months. Right now, Pfizer is looking to create a vaccine that protects against Omicron and some of the other variants. Right now, we want to tell you about a new Currents News series that will be airing this Thursday. It features parishioners from all over the Diocese of Brooklyn who are coming together through their parishes to make their communities a better place. Our first stop will be St. Matthias Parish in Ridgewood, Queens, where a mother and daughter team are making sure that fellow parishioners and anyone else who may be struggling with food insecurity don't go hungry during these very difficult times. Hard times that they themselves have experienced, but they say their work has only made their faith stronger.
So my mom lost her job because of the pandemic, but despite all of that, I say that for us to help out in the program, it distracts us from all of that, and it actually makes us feel even more grateful to God because we realize that some people are going through harder situations, and that's when we think that, you know, this act of charity that we're trying to do, it's a learning experience for us both.
Yeah. A mother-daughter story of faith and courage. They are the heartbeat of St. Matthias. Join us for our first Pulse of the Parish this Thursday on Currents News. And still to come on Currents News, we'll meet two sisters who started a small business to pay for a trip to World Youth Day. Why they are now planning to visit the Pope.
I want the Holy Father to know we are praying for you.
And the special messages from children in America delivered to Pope Francis. Two sisters in Spain working to pay for a trip to World Youth Day are now on their way to meet with the Pope. Back in 2016, Lucia and Maria Suarez began selling bracelets, nativity scenes, and gift boxes at their parish to pay for their trip to Krakow. And now, 5 years later, their little startup has grown into a family business, allowing them to support their loved ones during the pandemic and earning them a meeting with the Holy Father.
It got people's attention on social media and people liked our work, so we decided to continue with this project. It was like a hobby. We continued studying while making money on the side, because the financial situation at home wasn't great, so it was also a way to help our parents.
Lucia and Maria's brand has grown tremendously since they started in 2016. They now also design blazers, vests, dresses, and much more. For more details, you can visit their shop online at deluum.com. Meanwhile, a group of priests from the Americas stopped by the Vatican, delivering some cards to the Pope. Meet Father Jeremiah Boland and Father Sean Haggerty. They're part of a larger group of priests who've come to Rome to continue their theological studies. But that's not all. They've also come to deliver a handful of prayer cards to His Holiness, each one handwritten by Catholic school students in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
As a pastor, I'm always really busy and you have a lot of responsibilities, and it's so helpful to know people are praying for you. And I want the Holy Father to know we are praying for you. It is a tough job, and he's not alone, and Jesus Christ is with him.
The group of priests say their trip to the Vatican has already been eye-opening, and they hope to bring the spirit of Rome and a papal blessing back to their home communities when they return. So nice. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.